So we're sitting down with Dr. Bertrand Piccard, and just like the other Captain Picard, you have a ship that uses no fossil fuels. He's got a warp drive and impulse engines. What do you have that runs your ship?
Passion and solar energy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not the Enterprise, it's the Solar Impulse. But you know that Star Trek Captain Picard was named after the twin brother of my grandfather,
Oh my goodness.
who built the first stratospheric balloons to explore the stratosphere. So there is a link.
And you have a connection to balloons as well.
Yes, because I flew around the world non-stop in a balloon in 1999, but that was my personal dream.
Yeah.
Solar Impulse was more a useful exploration feat to fly around the world on a solar-powered airplane that uses absolutely no fuel and that could demonstrate that clean technologies and renewable energies can achieve so-called impossible goals. And this is what I wanted to demonstrate.
And you may have seen this years ago where he was flying around on that giant plane with a giant wing with a giant array there, and it all just fed into a battery. And that's how you got around, right?
Yes, exactly. The wingspan bigger than the jumbo jet, Boeing 747.
Yeah.
But the weight of a family car. And extremely efficient. It was not a question of producing more energy, it was a question of saving energy by energy efficiency to cope with the energy we got from the sun. So the plane was very light. We were flying quite slow. But nevertheless, several days, several nights, alone in the cockpit, with no noise, no fuel, no pollution, that gave the impression of being in the future.
But are you in the future, or are you in the present and other people are in the past?
You understood very well what I meant. It's exactly this. I was not in the future, only thinking I was. But the reality was that I was in the present with what the technologies of today allowed me to do today. And that was the moment I understood how much the rest of the world was in the past, with very old systems, very old technologies that were basically coming from the beginning of the oil era. You know, we are using technologies that are 100 years old. It's badly insulated buildings, inefficient heating, thermal engines, fossil fuels. All this is from the past. So if we want to solve the climate crisis, we basically need to replace all this dirty stuff and all this inefficient and outdated stuff with modern infrastructures. And the good news is that it is profitable. It's a business opportunity. It will create jobs. It will make money for the industry.
That's all politicians care about. And
Yeah.
other things, but mostly they
Yeah.
they
So
care
it's
about
a
job
way-
creation and economic
industrial
growth.
profit
Yeah.
and economical growth. And today we can prove that ecology becomes the driving force for the economy, because making things more modern, more efficient, cleaner is more profitable because you save resources and you save economy. So basically, the upfront investment is reimbursed by the efficiency and the savings that you do.
Let's go back to the plane itself. I think you have a secret for your plane that you haven't disclosed, that this plane, with the problem with solar panels, people say, you see someone holding a solar panel back there, is that the sun doesn't shine all the time. But if you're on the right side of the earth and you're above the clouds, the sun does shine all the time.
No. No. We have batteries to replace the fact that there is no sun at night. And this is the paradigm change that we wanted to introduce,
Yeah.
to prove that by storing the solar energy in the batteries, we could keep flying at night in the dark night and use solar energy for that, although there was no sun. And this is what people have to understand today. They say the renewable energy is intermittent. We cannot use it when there is no wind, when there is no sun. It's wrong, because there are all the means today to store that energy and use it over time.
So all this COP26, I have been doing a lot of interviews with a lot of people, and the main goal that people are talking about is how to create energy. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about how to not waste energy. Do we waste a lot of energy?
You're absolutely right. This is the biggest problem. 3/4 of the energy that is produced is actually wasted either by wrong behaviors or by inefficient systems. So you have to represent the world like a stupid person in a bathtub with a leak in the bathtub, and instead of solving the leak, the guy adds more water by opening the tap wide open. And this is the situation of today. So imagine all these technologies to make the world more energy efficient, make the world more profitable, cleaner, safer. If we save all this energy with the new systems that are available, all the rest of the energy we need can be produced only by renewable sources. And this is the good news. The technologies exist today, and this is what I have done with the Solar Impulse Foundation in the last 5 years, after flying around the world with a solar airplane, is to identify more than 1,000 technical solutions that are financially profitable to protect the environment. And that's why I'm here at COP26. It's to show that fighting against climate change is not only possible because we have solutions, but it's also profitable because these solutions are efficient, and it makes the possibility to be much more ambitious in the energy policy, environmental targets, because now it's the biggest business opportunity, so let's go for it.
How can you make buildings more efficient?
If you have cement and concrete that absorbs CO2 instead of emitting CO2, you solve a big part of the problem.
Ooh,
And
cement can absorb CO2 and kind of carbon capture it?
Yes.
I've never heard of this.
Because you
Yeah.
need CO2 for the chemical process into the cement.
Yeah.
So today, what exists is already today cement that are between 50 and 72% with less CO2, and the next step is to absorb the CO2 into the cement.
Wow.
And then you can construct, but you need to insulate the buildings much better, of course, not to lose the heat or the cold. You have heat pumps that can work on geothermia, and it's much more efficient than the heating with oil or gas. And new type of windows, new district cooling, district heating, things to when it's too warm, to reflect the sun outside with a special surface on the roof, and management, smart management of the energy inside the house, inside the building, to detect where people are, where you need the light, where you need the heating or the cooling. All this becomes smart, which shows that in the past everything was a bit stupid because the energy was wasted.
So rebuilding the built world is not easy, and it isn't cheap. How is that going to happen? How do we do that in developing nations that already have built cities?
Because you save so much energy with the efficiency that it reduces your energy bill and it pays for the upfront investment.
And you hear a lot of people here are talking about how to capture the carbon that we put out into the air. And is there a way of doing that? I mean, we don't have the big Spaceballs vacuum on the top of the Earth to capture all of it out. Is carbon capture really a solution?
Technically, it works.
Yeah.
Financially, it is not yet profitable because it costs far too much. And there is also a question of logic. Should we continue to pollute the atmosphere, not only with CO2 that can be captured, but with all the other particles, all the other pollution that kill 8 million people per year? Should we continue to do that? Should we continue to burn fossil energies that are in a limited quantity? Or should we go for renewable energies that are now cheaper than oil, gas and coal, that are clean, that come in an unlimited quantity, that allow to have new infrastructures that are much more modern? What do we want? So I think we have to be careful when we speak about the technologies of the future, because it also gives us the impression that we have to wait for the future and do nothing today, and that the miracle will come from the technology. No, the miracle will not come from the technology. The miracle will come from what we do with the technology, how we use it. And today we have 1,300 solutions at the Solar Impulse Foundation, that come from everywhere in the world, big corporations or startups, and they exist. So let's use what we have today.
Tell me
You know,
about some of those solutions that you like.
I like very much the startup who created the system to recover and recycle the heat coming out of the chimney of the factories, because it's common sense.
Not just scrubbing, but actually getting the heat
Getting
to come
the
back.
heat.
Yeah.
Recovered, so it reduces the energy bill of the company, and not only cleans the atmosphere. You have ways to recover the methane from the landfills. You have ways to make geothermal wells in the center of the cities to install heat pumps in the buildings. That was never possible before.
And a heat
Today
pump.
you can.
A heat pump is fascinating because
It's so efficient.
it takes hot warmth out of cold air.
Yes.
Because even if it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit outside, it's still way above absolute zero.
Yes.
So there's heat
Yeah,
in
you
there
understand
somewhere.
that perfectly
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And I hope people listening to us will understand that they have to use this system instead of burning oil, burning gas, or even having an electric radiator, which has a very bad efficiency. They can put a heat pump. It's what I did on my house. I
Yeah.
bought a house and changed the heating to put a heat pump, and I recover much more money each year because it's much cheaper to use.
What have you done today? Who have you talked to, and what has been a real step forward at this event that you are surprised that you were able to accomplish?
We offered to the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, a solution guide that we have made with a selection of 230 solutions that apply specifically to Scotland with a very high leverage on mitigating climate change. That was one big success of my team. It was hard work to do all that. And now we are offering to all the countries, this is why I'm meeting heads of states and ministers, we're offering to all the countries to do the same for their country. Select the solutions available for them to reduce CO2 emissions in a profitable way.
Is this all because you flew around the world? Is that you got the attention doing that, and then now you have the opportunity to talk to people about real
Yes,
solutions?
Yes.
Yeah.
The fact that, all these countries, they followed my flight around the world. I spoke with Ban Ki-moon during the signature of the Paris Agreement in the headquarters of the UN in New York from the cockpit of Solar Impulse.
Of South Korea, yeah.
Okay, so these people know me, I know them, and what I want to do now is to bring them the tools for them to reach their pledges. It's a toolbox, all these solutions.
Wow. And is there any chance that in the near future you could see actual commercial aircraft running off of some sort of battery technology?
There are already airplanes working on batteries for two-seaters and four-seaters. There will soon be an airline making commuting on the islands of Vancouver fully electrified with batteries. But probably for bigger airplanes, it will be hydrogen or biofuels because batteries will be probably too heavy, except if they get smaller and lighter in the future.
They're saying the same thing about cargo ships as well, because they have to push through the weather. They have to push through big waves, and maybe some sort of hydrogen tanks on there would be a lot lighter. And if you use what's called a fuel cell and you push that hydrogen through a membrane, you get electricity and you get water again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you can run an electric engine, you have a much better efficiency. The electric engines we had on Solar Impulse were 97% efficient, losing only 3%. In the thermal engine, you have 27% efficiency. That means that you lose almost 3/4 of your energy because the thermal engine is not efficient with fuel.
So it's mostly producing heat,
Yes.
and as a byproduct, it's producing torque.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. It's an old system. We should not go for that anymore. This is why electric mobility is much better. You use much less energy for each mile that you drive.
I think these LED lights that we have around here, I think that's a revolution that has
Yes.
happened too.
Yeah.
And people discount how big a deal these LED lights are.
Yeah, You know, a normal light bulb has 5% of efficiency, everything else is heat, and then you have to cool down with air conditioning. But the LED is 95% efficient. So when you have the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, making a call to get all India powered with LED and buying hundreds of millions of LED lamps to push the price down, it's the perfect move. It's exactly what has to be done.
It uses 80% less power.
95%
less power.
For the same
amount of brightness,
light.
yeah. And so instead of getting mostly heat and a little bit of light, you're getting mostly light and a little bit of heat. And at first in the United States, there was a lot of pushback to first the compact fluorescence and then the LEDs. And I think we've kind of turned a corner in the United States where people are buying more LED lights than incandescent lights because it just doesn't make any financial sense anymore.
But you know, for me, the goal is to be able to speak also to climate change deniers or people who don't care about the environment and tell them, even if there was no climate change, it would be logical as much as ecological to go for new efficient systems. You save money. It's a new business opportunity. It's new markets to seize. And by the way, it also protects the environment, so the others will be happy. So it's really important to see that we can change the narrative and put a lot of people on our side.
How do you talk to the folks who say that this whole thing, everybody coming out here trying to change the world in a hurried way, is just nonsense and it doesn't really affect their life? How do you talk to those folks?
I'm saying that all the infrastructures we are using are not only polluting, they're expensive because they're inefficient and they waste energy and they waste resources. So the question today is to bring the world from the past to the present, to change the infrastructures, make them modern, make them efficient. And this is profitable. This is a big business opportunity. And I believe this is why we can succeed in reducing the amount of energy that we waste, go for cleaner energy. Today, just to give you an example, the solar energy in Portugal is 4 times cheaper than gas, oil, coal, and nuclear. So it's the market who's going to decide. It's not the ideology of the people who believe or not in climate change. It's just the market who's going to push there. And this is what all the negotiators have to understand in the negotiations at the COP26 and all the other COPs. It's a big advantage for national economies to go for efficiency, to go for the ecology who becomes the driving force of the economy.
But what if I'm a small business owner in Kansas and I have a lot of equipment that runs on gasoline or diesel fuel, and how would you convince me about changing over to very expensive new equipment?
It is not very expensive new equipment.
Yeah.
It is an upfront investment that is going to be reimbursed every year by all the energy you save and all the resources you save. So basically it's true, you need an upfront investment, but an investment is not a cost. The cost is when you lose the money that you spent. And this is exactly what happens when you burn fossil energy. There's nothing left at the end. But when you install renewable energies or a heat pump or things like that, you have a system that is more efficient, that you keep, and you earn money or save money each year. And this is so important for people to understand. So, of course, maybe they need a loan from a bank in the beginning, but if you buy a house, you have a loan. If you buy a car, you have a loan. So everything is made on credits now, especially in the US, so you can do it also for changing the infrastructures and becoming more efficient. Sometimes we believe that we are in a dilemma between the ecologists and the activists who say we have to degrow, but this will lead to a social chaos by ruining the economy, or we have to go for the infinite growth that leads to the ecological disaster. None of these two ways work. This is why I promote a third way, which is what I like to call the qualitative growth. Qualitative growth is where you create value not on the quantity of the consumption, but on the quality of the efficiency. Qualitative growth is when you create jobs and make profits by replacing what is polluting by what is protecting the environment. So it's a completely other narrative. And it's a narrative that will reconcile ecology and economy. It's a narrative that will bring the industry into more efficiency because they know it is more profitable.
What is it like to fly with just batteries behind you? I mean, did you ever feel kind of scared? I mean, I know you were wearing a life vest while you were flying the whole time, but did you ever wonder if something was going to go wrong? Or was your wingspan long enough that you could just become a glider?
You know what really frightens me in life?
Yeah.
It is not to fly on an experimental solar airplane. What really frightens me in life is to live in a world that burns 1 million tons of oil every hour, pollutes the environment, makes inequalities everywhere, more poverty, more inequalities, health issues, not enough money for education of children. This frightens me. This world is becoming crazy. And this is why we have to improve it and bring all the solutions and all the technologies and all the sources of energy to make it better.
You're up there in the atmosphere, and when we look from the ground, it looks like it's so big, but it's so thin. It's very thin, the atmosphere that we have protecting us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a very, very little layer around the Earth, and we believe that nature is so strong and we can destroy it without any bad consequence, but it's wrong. It's a very subtle balance, and we cannot disbalance all this subtle equilibrium. It's dangerous to disbalance nature. Every little piece is in relation with the others, and if you take one out, the system falls apart. You know, already in China today, because the bees are dying, you have hundreds of thousands of people with a little brush that are making the pollination on the flowers to grow
people are doing
and fruits. Yeah, because there are no bees anymore in some regions. This is the result of our madness of destroying the environment with chemicals and bad behaviors.
Dr. Bertrand Piccard, thanks so much for speaking with us, and we will continue this conversation as your present becomes our future. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the invitation.